Wednesdays with Whitney, and today you are getting two Whitneys on Wednesday. I got it right eventually. So if you guys haven't met Whitney Shindelar yet,
hello,
which would be crazy because she's been on here like three times.
Yes, I think so.
And we've been very, very good friends for quite a while now. We've traveled all over together, and she is my official travel advisor, person that tells me where to go. At least 40% of our conversations are around travel philosophy, all this fun stuff. So we are going to dig into all things travel today. And if you guys end up with any questions, we'll try to watch and see what's going on over there. But Whitney, I'm going to throw it over to you and just talk about Undiscovered Sunsets. Tell us just the base level, what you do in the world.
Okay, so going on 4 years ago, I started Undiscovered Sunsets. Today I'm the travel advisor, the principal travel advisor, and I have two other travel advisors who recently joined my team. Mm-hmm. I'm working very closely with solo travelers, with groups of friends, families, honeymooners, couples, and we're planning travel all over the world. I don't have a particular expertise or area of the world that I specialize in because I love to get to know my clients. I love to get to know what they love and to plan all of their trips, big, little, small, weekend getaways, huge epic adventures. And that's kind of that relationship that you and I have built over the last few years. It's kind of what led to her traveling to such a crazy place like Panama, is because I had the opportunity to throw out some crazy ideas, and I only get to do that when I know someone really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys remember, but last Wednesday I said I was in Panama. So for the past 7 days, first of all, we'll talk about this hat in a second. I should have kept it on. I've been in Panama for the past 7 days, like Panama, like the country, not Florida, just to be really specific. And when I said I was going, I got a lot of why looks. And honestly, I had the same, I was like, I don't know. Before I went to Panama, I had no idea why I was going to Panama. And our conversation, now Whitney and I have traveled all over together. So I trust her. And basically I said, here's my budget. Here's what I'm looking for. I want a relaxing experience with a little bit of culture in a place that I would never pick for myself. Because I knew I've been to Puerto Rico. I've been to Puerto Vallarta. I've done these things. I've done the easy things that I can do by myself. I wanted something that I didn't have to plan and was just like, here I go. So when you suggested Panama, I was like, well, why not? Because I knew it was jungly. I knew it would have that feel. But why did you suggest Panama to me?
For exactly what you shared with me that you were looking for, Panama is a place that we can get to in an easy flight from the U.S. That was one of the boxes we were trying to tick. It's a good 7-day destination. Once we get further into South America, there's a lot that would be better with 10 or 12 or 14 days. 7, you can kind of do easy with Panama. I know you love food. I know you love culture. I know you appreciate the history of a place that you're visiting. And not all Caribbean, Central American, nearby destinations have all of those. Some of them have great beaches and food, but then not a lot of activities and culture. And some of them have epic culture, but then not really the beaches. And so Panama was just the destination that you haven't yet visited, most importantly, and that was able to offer food, culture, relaxation, beaches, everything kind of all in one. So that was kind of my thought process in narrowing down the places.
Well, it was so good because I arrived with almost no knowledge. I mean, other than and this is
classic,
me, guys.
Classic
me. They're like, did you plan? And I was like, no. I have someone who does that. Guys, this is
I know this about
her. I look at the itinerary 2 days before. Obviously I went through an approval process, sort of, but again, she knows me so well by now that I'm like, you know what I like, thank you.
And I even left you special notes. So I also know that she loves to shop and buy souvenirs and locally crafted souvenirs, which I also love. That's a mutual love affair that we have. Hence the hat and all of my souvenirs from my travels here. And so I even gave you little notes of where to go shopping and where to find these little artisanal crafts. So nothing that you need me to arrange, but just some guidance of go to this street. This is where you're going to find them. I gave you a hat shop because I knew she bought 3 hats on our last trip, so I knew she was going to want that. I found ceviche places for you, coffee places for you. That's my favorite part, is because I know you so well that I can give super, super specific recommendations.
And I went to almost all of those places. Like I was like, I'm here today.
Yeah.
And what I found so intriguing about Panama is that it is culturally, I mean, there are 45 skyscrapers in Panama City, guys. 45. Like, this is a city. I was going into a city. Now, I was staying in the colonial area, so I now know a lot about the history of Panama, so I'll try to keep this brief. But Panama has been colonized first by the Spanish and then by the French, and then we came in and we did the canal part. So I learned so much about the canal infrastructure, the city itself, and how it grew. And what I wanted to share with you guys is that this is called the Panama hat because when FDR went down there for the canal building, first of all, these hats are actually made in Ecuador, or they're like from Ecuador, because the Ecuadorians were building the Panama Canal. Okay. So they brought the hats to Panama, and the Ecuadorians actually call them hippie happies.
Hippie happies.
So this is a hippie happy.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. But my guide did. So my guide told me this is a hippie happy. But of course, FDR did not remember that it was a hippie happy. So he just called it the Panama hat, and that's why it's called the Panama hat now.
So I have to take a moment and be really proud because of all of the information that she's now spouting out about Panama. This is one of my other favorite things, is that I think that when we plan trips ourselves, we often don't think that we want to be bogged down by a tour or by a really set agenda on our trip because we want to relax, we want to have free time, we want to explore. But I did that for 10 years in 25 plus countries, and I started to get this feeling of like, okay, I'm standing in this super historical area, I'm looking at the Panama Canal, or there's all this Spanish colonial architecture, but like I don't actually know what I'm looking at, I don't know what's happening. And so that's when I started to do a lot of research into hiring a guide and joining a small group tour or joining a food tour or just any sort of thing that would really elevate my experience and provide that type of information for me. And look at everything she learned because I gave her a guide for a day.
And I have so much, so my structure, I got there, I had a relaxing, like I went and ate dinner, and then the next day I had like a full 8-hour tour. Like I spent time with Roberto, and he was awesome. We started in the colonial city, we walked everywhere. Guys, it is humid there, by the way, so just be prepared, sweatbands and stuff. I mean, it's Caribbean, so if you like the heat, it's good for that. We walked through there, and then he took me to the old city, and so I got to see all of this and have context for the entire country.
So you get to have a conversation with the guide and ask questions that you're interested in, so he can really cater the information to you.
Absolutely.
Whitney doesn't know this, but also because I know her so well, I've traveled with her. I know how you receive information and how also sometimes the information gets to be too much. And I think that it's like that for all of us. In working with my partners, not only did I say I want a private guide for Whitney for one day, not every day. I said I only want it for one day. I want them to go to the canal, but she's not going to want 4 hours at the canal. She's going to want an hour tops. Like
that's exactly what
right? Okay. And because
he was like, "You don't want to go to the museum, do you?" And I was like, "No."
See, I gave them a heads up about that because I know you, and so that also I was able to communicate with the guide in advance. So he's already your private guide, but he knew about you before you arrived, so that he could really personalize that. And so that even takes it up a notch. That you're not always able to do for yourself.
Absolutely, totally. So I'm gonna just so I can see a little better in this context, but the hat was great. So when you're thinking about designing these experiences, like I would imagine someone like me is probably becoming more normal because you've been in business now for 4 years. But what does it look like when somebody comes and says, okay, this is our first time working together, I want X. Like, where do you start with somebody?
If somebody comes to me and they don't know where they want to go.
They don't know where they want to go, they don't have context for it.
So there's a few like key factors that help me start narrowing it down from Earth to a specific country. First, I will talk to them a lot about where they've been before. So are we talking with someone who's already visited 30 or 40 countries and they're looking for something super crazy and unique? Or are we talking to someone who has only been to Europe once as a teenager with their parents? Right? Like
totally
so
different travel
already those two people are very, very different. So that will be my first question is, where have you traveled before? And of the places that you've traveled before, what did you love most about those trips? So that I can start to get a sense of like, okay, they're really driven by the food, they're really driven by the history, they're really driven by the hikes and the biking and the activity and all those things. Then the practical logistics are really important. I will ask what type of time during the year you're looking to travel.
Yeah.
So if you tell me in March or April, or if you tell me July, August, my recommendation is going to be completely different, because now we're talking about seasons, we're talking about prices and high season, and don't go there in August because it'll be overrun with people. And then your total number of days. So as I mentioned, you were looking for 1 week, and Panama's really easy to get to in 1 week. So I think
if I would have said, I want to go to South Africa and I have 7 days, you would have been like,
I probably would have said, like, yeah, technically you can do it, but I don't think that's the best use of your time, because you're going to spend 3 of your 7 days just getting there and back.
Sounds terrible. I need a solid 14 days if I'm traveling for 3.
And if you want to go to South Africa, then I would say, let's talk about 10 or 12 days. Like, can we swing that? Because I can do a lot more with that. So I never say no. It's not like anything's ever off the table. It's just, I'll just give you my advice, and then you can go from there. But yeah, those 3 factors are really, I talk with a lot of brand new clients who have no idea where they want to go. And actually, that's my favorite part of all of this. So where you've been before, how you love to travel, what season we're looking at, and how many total days. And we can narrow it down pretty quickly to some good ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the questions I get are when I do solo travel.
Yeah.
And you plan for a lot of solo travelers. I saw Carla. I wonder if I can scroll up. Sorry, I guess I'm like getting in your face. Ooh, hi, Emily.
Carla's,
Oh, yeah, Carla. So Carla.
Love guides for context. Yeah. So I also make her get guides.
Yeah, because we need it. So when you're planning for a solo traveler, what are some of the concerns? What are some of the thoughts? Because there's a lot of people that I know watching that are really inspired by this idea, but they're a little scared about this idea. And now I'm someone who has had the good fortune to travel a lot in my life. And I had people that taught me how to travel. And I got, I went to Italy in college and made all of the mistakes. Every single one.
I've been there, and much of the advice that I give clients today is based on my past mistakes of like, don't do what I did. Just yesterday, when we were in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Do you remember I went to try to drop off the rental car? I had the address. We drove like 20 or 30 minutes through the city. Didn't check the time that the rental car office closed. And by the time we finally got there, it was closed and we couldn't drop off the car. So we then had to pay for an additional night, extra parking at the hotel, and then we had to go back to the same rental car agency the next day. Yeah. So just last night I was like, dear client, please check the time of the rental car office. Do not do what I did. So I'm constantly learning from all the ways that I messed up.
Absolutely. I texted her. I was running to my second flight last night. Like I was booking it because my first flight had gotten really delayed.
Like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I didn't think I was going to make it. But when I found out there was a chance, you guys, I went. And
that's not the first time you've run.
That is not. So I text her. I'm sitting on the airplane sweating, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I've been there too.
I texted her and I was like, so remember that time that we ran through, it was Heathrow, wasn't it?
We were on our way to Heathrow.
Okay, I don't know where we were starting. And we were like, we're not going to make it. And Whitney's way faster than I am. So I'm like, go.
Well, and I got through, I was like one person in front of her in the immigration line, and she was like, don't wait for me, go. So I'm running, and then I get to the gate, and I was like, do not shut the door. She's there.
So I think that's the other thing is like, travel isn't always seamless. In fact, it's actually never seamless.
No, it's not.
There's not like a point in which, and I actually like wept a little yesterday morning when I had to leave my resort because I was like, oh my god, I was truly in paradise.
Happy tears, but also sad tears.
No, it was actually like I could live here. So like you guys might just have to come visit me in Panama. But where was I going with this?
Solo travel, and it's not always seamless.
Oh, okay. So like I truly had this like gorgeous, stunning trip. But like there are the little things that like travel just brings up. Like when you need a bathroom and there's like not one.
Yeah.
And another great thing about having, like I had my resort was 2 hours from the airport.
Yeah.
So I had someone drive me there and back because it's across the country. So it's not something I could easily do by myself. And an hour and a half in. And my guide knew where to like stop and pull off. Like these are the things that I couldn't have like.
Yeah.
I would have been done for.
Well, and if you're on a bus, like that bus is not stopping for you.
No, that bus isn't stopping.
But in terms of solo travel, I think that there's the safety aspect, but then there's also the aspect of choosing the right destination. And I've traveled solo a fair amount as well, and there are certain destinations that would really be better to go with someone, whether it's a friend, a partner, a group of friends, doesn't matter who. So there are really some destinations that if you asked me, I'd be like, 100% we can plan it. But this might be better to find some friends or someone to go with because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And then there are other places that are absolutely wonderful, and your experience will be 100% the same if you're by yourself or with a group. Yeah. So I'm always trying to think about like where you're going to stay and what you're going to do while you're there, and if those activities are interesting for a solo traveler. On the safety side of things, where I had you stay was really strategic.
Absolutely.
Panama City specifically is kind of broken into like an old colonial quarter, and then the city where the 45 skyscrapers are. I knew that there was nothing for you to see or do way over there, even though that's where a large majority of the hotels are. So I was specifically looking for a hotel that was within walking distance of everywhere that you were going to want to be, so that you weren't constantly on buses or subways or in taxis. And so there's a little element there of like making sure you're choosing the right destination or for the location of the hotel. But then also the activities like the small guided groups or a private guide, those are also adding an element of safety. Because you are now with a local, you're alone less, so you're with people in transporting from A to B, and you have someone speaking the local language. So all these little nuances kind of add up to kind of build a beautiful solo trip.
Absolutely. And honestly, I did a solo trip and I was almost never alone. Based on like, even when I was sitting in coffee shops, there was usually someone just sitting next to me talking to me. There was one day where I had a completely free day in Panama City to Rome, and that was like, I was sort of alone, but like all of, even though I don't speak Spanish, all of the waiters and waitresses were chatting with me, or we were using Google Translate. There was a lot of that. And then when I got to the resort, guys, if you just want to go to heaven, talk to me.
We found heaven.
We found heaven. I'll be back all the time. And I would describe this resort, and I would never describe it as a resort. It is a resort because it's complete luxury, but it's like the most beautiful adult day camp.
Adult day camp.
It truly is, because there's all these activities and like there's only 20 people that stay there, so like you're like a family. And so the day that I got there, I was hanging out with 4 people from the Midwest who had traveled all of their lives. I haven't even told you this yet.
Oh, that's amazing.
But it's two older couples that have been, 2 farming older couples that have been everywhere, and they gave me a list, so I'll have to share that with you.
That's amazing.
But like I hung out with them. And that's just so cool.
The other perk of traveling solo is you really do meet more people. When I traveled solo, as you mentioned, at almost every coffee shop in Copenhagen, you said there was a woman who like invited you to dinner.
I ate pizza with a woman and like had this beautiful interaction. Not to say it only happens, but when I'm with another person,
I'm with that person. And whether it's you or whether it's my husband or whether it's both of them, because they're often traveling as a trio. I'm not really looking to have a conversation with someone else. I'm very connected with the person that I'm with. And so I often come home from those trips not having met very many people. When I travel solo, as you mentioned, I'm meeting people almost every day because, and it's often other solo travelers. Or even I was traveling solo once, and this older couple staying at the same hotel kind of like adopted me and invited me to dinner every night, and that was wonderful. That was fantastic. So,
and these aren't people that necessarily like end up in my phone and I talk but
it's just
I love that
isolated, beautiful, engaging experience. And then you both go on your way.
It's like the most low expectation, like firework thing that happens. You're like, oh, we're both here at the same time.
Because you know that if you're both in Panama at that hotel, you obviously have something in common. You have common interests. There's something.
I met a couple from Detroit. They were laying next to me at the first hotel, and it's like, you guys are from the Midwest. There were so many Midwesterners. I knew by how they were dressed. They were from the Midwest. And then they opened their mouths, and I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, There it is.
We're here together.
Yep.
So those are just some of the amazing things. If you guys are thinking about traveling solo, just do it. If it makes you nervous, like getting somebody who knows how to plan that. I mean, I've done a lot of solo travel, like in the US, just like I'll show up in a city and I'll go because like that's easy. Like I know everything. I personally wouldn't do solo travel without your assistance because that's just not like out of the country.
Well,
it's not in my comfort zone.
Another aspect on the safety side of things is I knew where she was every single day at all times because I planned the trip. So if there was ever a moment that I needed to get in touch with you or if I hadn't heard from you in a day or two, she was always sending me photos, so I knew she was fine. But if that had stopped, not only do I have your contact information, but I have your hotel, I have the person who I arranged your travel with. So there's an additional safety aspect as well.
Think about that.
Yeah, I could have found you if I needed to.
I could have checked you down. I think the only thing I don't do solo traveling that I do when I'm in groups is I don't experience as much of the nightlife.
Sure,
like I'm not going out to the bars, which is not really my thing anyway. But
well, and that's a perfect example of if you asked me about a destination that was really like nightlife, socially heavy in the experience, like Mykonos.
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't send you to Mykonos as a solo traveler because you want to have fun going out with your friends and meeting other people and going to restaurants. So like that's a kind of a good example of maybe not the best to go solo.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people who have been to Mykonos solo and they had a wonderful time, but they're just little things to think about.
Yeah. I love it. Amazing. Anything you would like to leave our guests with today about travel or maybe where you're going next or where you've been recently?
We have planned our next trip domestic. We had a really, really big safari experience in Botswana in December, so that was amazing.
The photos from that are incredible. They're on your Facebook page, aren't they? For Undiscovered
They
Sunsets?
are on my Facebook page, and I'm still editing a bunch of them, so Facebook has like the highlights. And our next trip is to Lake Tahoe and Yosemite National Park in California. So we're super excited. Unfortunately, we lived in California for 2 years and did not make it to Tahoe. I'm embarrassed to say that. I feel like that always happens when you live somewhere. It feels so close and then suddenly you don't live there anymore. So that's our next trip. We're super excited.
Yay. Yeah. All right, friends, you will inevitably see a lot more of her in my world as you follow along. So Whitney is never far from me or from the feed, but I will see you guys next week. Bye.